Hello and welcome. We are going to go straight through some translations of an interview that Yoshi P gave over the weekend. This was an interview with Kamiki Ryunosuke's Radio Mog Station special. This was in Japanese only. Looks like it got posted through a couple of different sources, and the live translation seemed to vary slightly. There is some talk about MSQ. I will do that at the end so that anybody that wants to listen to just the news can listen to that first, just in case you are for some reason not caught up on MSQ but do want to know what's going on with the endgame system. I got you. But there will be a warning. He is going to talk about some of his thoughts about the MSQ as well. So, first of all, the new NPC follow system that was confirmed, I think it's been called the Pursuit system, where you can take an NPC with you. They said that actually took 8 years in the making. Was something they had already thought about implementing as early as Heaven's Word, but it did finally make it in this expansion. But they have acknowledged that there are stress factors and are looking into making sure the NPC won't separate with you, which it makes you have to redo the whole thing. Especially when you use a city teleport. That can be incredibly frustrating when you use a city teleport and then have to run all the way back. Since they implemented this system, people have ended up using it a lot, and they know that it kind of ended up quite rushed, and it was some of them were overdone. So they are looking to adjusting the way some of them function. I know I can think of a few that I wished were paced a little bit differently. Also, the quest from the cold. We saw that this got a nerf in the patch notes, but we didn't get an explanation of why. It did not get a nerf on normal difficulty, but if you fail it, it got a nerf on the lower difficulties. And they said actually some of the checks slipped by one of the project managers that typically, as a more casual player, catches things like that. And so when they got a bunch of complaints, they went back and realized that because it didn't have one of the project managers that was a more casual player, it did need that nerf. We've already seen that go out. As a reminder, 6.0 as a patch will be available for New Game Plus in 6.1. Typically, patch cycles in this game are about 16 weeks, so you're kind of looking at that end of March timeframe. So that would be, they have not given us a date on that. That's based on just past expansions. So sometime in there, it should become available this spring for New Game Plus. They were aware that with 6.0, the poster boy got to be a paladin, and they have already confirmed that they are already deciding what job will be the poster boy for 7.0. And they are ready to talk about server expansion and reopening the sales of Final Fantasy XIV in the coming weeks. So I would expect those to likely come out maybe at the first live letter when we're looking at kind of that February timeframe. They did not get a time on this, so this is soon. And now let's talk about job balances. We saw a couple of job balances go out with the raid dropping Savage. Not everybody is happy with where it is. That is going to be a give and take always. So let's talk about what jobs he was willing to comment on already. He said, first of all, with Reaper, they built it from scratch, and so that they thought that the class was really well designed from the beginning. So rather than nerfing it, they really would like to focus on buffing other jobs to lessen the gap. The pure firepower of Samurai and Black Mage, they would like those to have a buff. They think they were a bit stingy, and that they will actually go ahead and get some buffs in on them for 6.08. So that'll be pretty quick. They also thought there was some miscommunication on some feedback that made the devs think that they needed to be increasing some stuff with Samurai, some cast times instead of decreasing. So they are looking into making sure they understand all that feedback. And then they do think Dancer should have higher DPS. They are looking into adjusting jobs that are particularly busy and fast. Not necessarily those jobs DPS, but at least kind of what is making them feel busy. So I would expect more job adjustments across the board. When in doubt, it will affect some jobs, but not all jobs. So if you play multiple jobs, hopefully some of the changes will excite you. If you just play your one job, this is a reminder. You should always have a second job in Final Fantasy XIV, just in case your job ever moves into a state where it's less fun. If it's in the same role, it'll share gear. If it's in a different role, it'll give you a chance to play a very different way of playing the game. Pros and cons there, but my recommendation would be to have two jobs that are within at least striking distance of level cap. So if you've just hit cap with one, try to get another one up to like at least 80. That way you have it. Maybe it's just Sage or Reaper, so it's a short little grind to 80. That way it's always right there should you ever realize you need it. From here, let's talk about spoilers. If any of you are away from your phone for a second, I'll give you a second while we talk about story. The casters of this had finished MSQ. Yoshi P obviously knows all of MSQ. I finished all of MSQ. Brian's finished all of MSQ. We're very excited to hear about this, and I think that's enough stalling. Let's jump into this. First, they wanted to talk about Xenos in Endwalker. He is by far the one that this is translated a couple of different ways, so I'm just going on one of them. He is by far the one that does not see you as a hero, but merely as an adventurer, and to us, that's an extra element rather than the final boss. In the scene where we have a fist fight with him, that is actually different based on race, and they really enjoyed, especially Lalafell, seeing how that played out. It is a fist fight with the Warrior of Light, where we utilize the power of Dynamis, and that meant that all cutscenes had to be composed differently for different races. Yoshi P was also especially particular about the fight with Heidelin. It broke Yoshi P into tears whenever he had to do the checks for the scene that involved dialogue selections from Bana. The model for Heidelin was designed based on Yoshitaka Amano Sensei's art style and took the devs a month to get past that model design phase there. The battle with Heidelin that is when done with trusts, the only trial we've ever gotten in the game with trusts, was adjusted with both inputs from Tsuyoshi from the battle team and Yoshi P. The dialogues that took place in the battle were written by Yoshi P himself, and he was glad to get to work on that. He did want to note that Y'shtola is the only person in trusts that will be able to avoid all of Heidelin's mechanics perfectly. Garlemald, they did say that was actually created with divisive opinions in mind. They knew that was going to kind of split the room. Just because you have your own justice doesn't mean others will resonate with you. They did want to make sure that they went through the themes in the following here. They started Endwalker reflecting on the themes of ARR. There were a lot of callbacks there. Favnir then takes over for Heavensward. Garlemald was Stormblood, and Elpis was Shadowbringers. Now, talking about all of this in context pre-live letter is very exciting to get to hear from him. It's nice to hear him talk on story. That's more than he ever will in a live letter. They keep live letters relatively spoiler-free. So it was cool to get to see him comment on that. It'll be a little while before we have more of these interviews trickling out that get to focus really heavily on some big lore questions. Hopefully by FanFest, we've either gotten a few or can have a few then. FanFest is about a year in, where they begin hyping up the next expansion. So it's coming. It's coming. And so we are looking forward to that. This is awesome. This is awesome. Really, really cool. Glad that it had it. I got my information. I read some of these translations from the live translation section in the Final Fantasy XIV Discord, supported by the Final Fantasy XIV community. The official Reddit Discord is there's a lot here. And so I encourage you guys to get plugged in over there. For all the issues I have with Reddit as a platform, the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit is the single largest grouping of Final Fantasy XIV players. And so if you want to be plugged in on the news, it's a great place to go see what is going on. And I encourage you to go give it a shot sometimes. Just be aware that Reddit does let a little bit of the toxicity rise to the top. So don't let it be the only place you go. But it is 100% worth being one of the places you go.